Hollywood every year, love it. I'm a digital media consultant. I live in Miami and half the time here, and a lot of my background's in digital music actually, so I bring a perspective that's music oriented and also Latin American oriented. So let's just do a round of brief intros at who everyone is and what we do, and we'll get into some discussion points.
My name is Greg Bond. I'm the head of commercial partnerships for Blend Media, a company based in London. We're basically a technology and content company for 360 video and VR. We build technology to enable brands, publishers to leverage 360 video, and then we also have a creator network that we help get assignment work for, and then monetize their library of content.
Hello, my name is Michaella Vu. I direct and produce virtual reality content, and right now I'm working on the integration of multi-platform storytelling through 360 video to web VR, and then integrating that storyline to get 6 degrees of freedom. And so,
Hi, I'm Joanna Popper. I just recently moved to LA, so I'm very excited to be here. It's been less than a month ago from San Francisco. Originally, I was from Miami, though, which is how I know Seth. So I am currently working with a number of different AR and VR companies that span from haptics to gaming to 360 video, sports. And prior to that, I ran media marketing at Singularity University, and I ran marketing for one of the NBC Universal networks.
Good morning, I'm Shelley Andagan with 3D Paint and Effects and the head of post-production there. And we specialize in stereoscopic work, whether that's visual effects, VR, pretty much anything media related that you need fixed, we'll do it for a pretty penny. But we'll make your work look good. And yeah, so excited to be here this morning. And
Hello, my name is Evette Vargas. I am a writer, director, producer of cinematic VR as well as CG. I've been working in VR as a storyteller for the last 4 years, and the past year really been focusing on AR and MR, adding that and expanding those kinds of skill sets as a storyteller. I'm a co-founder of my company called Digital Brain, and we basically have evolved into an immersive storytelling company. And the kinds of projects that we work on, it's IPs for the entertainment industry, from feature films to television. And then in terms of originals, I'm really focused on 360 and virtual reality scripted television series.
My name's Matthew Cook. I'm with Autumn VR. We're a cinematic VR content company. We're moving more into VR gaming. We executive produced and funded Paranormal Activity, and just recently we purchased the license for Sharknado, and we're turning that into a VR game.
Hi, I'm Richard Fendelman, and I have a production company in Miami, Florida, and I'm a video filmmaker, director, cameraman, DP, editor, animator. So about 3.5 years ago, I had a client said we want to do a 360 virtual reality thing for a trade show, and I said I really don't know what that is, but I'll find out. And I got the cameras and learned how to do it very quickly. Did a pretty successful project for them, and of course I was hooked at that time, and I've been focusing on that now for the last 3 years. Live action. If I have to add animation, like real animation, I go to one of these people over here and they finish it up for us, and basically that's what I do.
Cool. So let's start with kind of the big question here that overlies a lot of these areas that we're talking about. And any one of you can feel free to jump in, but what is it going to take to make VR and AR a real business, a real content business that shows the characteristics of an actual media business?
I'll jump in. I'm excited about Oculus Go. That was just announced yesterday. I think that might be the new hero device. I know there's some dissension among my peers here, but I think something like that. And then we also Googled Daydream I think it's something that might push us over. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
Good go.
Feel free to dissent to anyone.
I think that there's 5 factors, so I don't think any one specific thing is going to be the thing. I think, if you say what makes it a real business, how do you define a real business? I guess there's a massive consumer adoption, there's revenue, there's people can make a living in it. There's a lot of different ways you might define it. When I usually talk about it, I talk about what's going to take to get massive consumer adoption, and there's 5 factors. So one is continuing technological advancements in form factor. So, Oculus Go, the new standalone daydream would be one of those, and that will continue and continue. And what gives me optimism in that area is that we have, all the really big companies spending billions of dollars on it. We have tons of small startups. Every day you hear about a new one who, is making amazing advancements in light field or amazing advancements in eye gazing. And so you have that combination of, startups with tons of energy and enthusiasm and brain power, plus billions and billions of dollars of engineering talent at all the big companies. So first is like technology and form factor. The second is, continue to have amazing content. So that brand defining hit or that killer app that people are looking for and they just can't miss it. The third is location-based entertainment. I think many people will have their first experience in location-based, and because it's a lot easier to spend anywhere from $10 to $50 on that ticket, and not set it up at home, and take your friends, take your family, and so there'll be a lot of people who have that first experience that way. It's a lot easier, cheaper than the $500 to $2,000 you need to drop to have a great experience. The third is to continuing advancements in social VR. So places like Facebook Spaces and AltSpace and Sansar, where you're able to not just have a cool experience, but you're able to experience it with other people, and you have that community. And then the fifth is continuing advancements on the mobile side, which also kind of went back to Oculus and Daydream. So when the mobile experience, whether it's AR Kit or AR Core, is amazing and exciting, and it's on 3 billion phones, that's going to help massive consumer adoption. So all 5 of those,
That's a lot of stuff, but yeah.
But they're all happening.
Okay, and that's fair. Does someone have an opinion on maybe which one of those 4
Well, I really think that even right now we're coming into a hardware issue. Not really. Everyone that has a cell phone in their hand only has the capability to do 360 video. So when we come to an age where we have all the sensors built in that enable true 6 degree of freedom at mobility speeds. I'm working with web VR and I'm having a trouble with people's browsers even supporting the data that's coming through. So once we have the hardware that kind of catches up, then we have even pop culturally people haven't accepted the next age of computing, passive computing to immersive computing. So I feel that once we reach that stage, we have even Ready Player One coming out next year, and I think that'll even help to drive mass adoption.
Pricing of the devices. The new Oculus you mentioned is a couple $100, right? And if you go back to my background in music, or even in mobile, you look at who had the most apps in the App Store, and there's got to be some content universe around it that would help drive this forward, yeah?
Well, I'm happy to take the dissenting opinion here. I honestly think if you're betting on headset adoption for this to be a real business, you're missing the point. I don't think it'll ever hit scale inside of a headset until it becomes something as innocuous as putting on your glasses that you normally wear, and that provides you an AR experience, MR experience, and a VR experience all in one device, and that's your computing platform. Until it gets there, which is still 5 years away at least, we're going to find businesses built on 360 video, on social, on mobile, through web VR, on the consumable platforms, on the 2.5, 3 billion mobile phones that are out there now currently. That's what has scale, and that's where I think you have to start. And if anyone's trying to build their business on the headsets, which Facebook is, but they're playing a long 5-year end game, and they have the money to last. Anyone else that doesn't have that kind of money, you're not going to last 5 years.
So yesterday I was actually in this room watching a panel, and everybody's experts, and there was somebody from an advertising agency who's the art director, and they deal with all of this all the time. So I asked the question, I said, what percentage would you say your clients are asking for content for head-mounted displays versus mobile or just on your computer? And mostly it was 100% mobile and computer. No one's using headsets unless you're a gamer. I mean, I don't even use, I got 3 of them, I don't even, watch them. But for me now, when I open up Facebook or YouTube and someone has a picture, I want to look around, and I can't because they didn't do 360, and I'm so spoiled. And I think eventually, everyone's going to be shooting some kind of 360. I mean, I've got that, I forget the name of it, the little round 360 thing that plugs into your phone.
Yeah.
And it's great. You can even stream, it looks like. But still, I think everyone's going to be having that, and they're going to be used to watching it like, 360 format.
I completely agree in terms of really not looking at certainly one headset, one platform, and it just really expanding what immersive storytelling is. I mean, obviously I'm a content creator, so I'm always looking at story, and for me these are all clearly storytelling opportunities, storytelling mediums, and I've been a multi-platform storyteller for a very, very, very long time, coming out of the digital space as well as traditional, and clearly now it's really all of that. So going back to, I mean, for me it's always about story first, medium and platform second, delivery, really thinking about the best delivery mechanism for that particular kind of content. Regardless if it's a brand or something that's purely narrative or something that's experiential. But really thinking about how I can, and this is a question for whether it's a brand or an IP or just something that's completely experimental. It's always about how do you get it in front of as many people as possible. So if you're really looking at whatever your content is from that point of view, then clearly you can't take 360 mobile out of the equation and only build upon that, because I find that if you really do a great job at the lowest common denominators, chances are that you can create these fans, this kind of engagement, this kind of interest in the content that therefore hopefully inspires people to then go down other rabbit holes. So for me it's always about that. It's always about doing a great job and delivering the best possible content regardless of the mechanism, and hopefully people are buying into that, and therefore that can become that's the entry, that's the portal into potentially other mediums and platforms.
Let's talk a little bit about this for 1 second. I mean, when you think about content and titles, what's a breakthrough? What do you see as hot in this space? Is it something like the Inaritu, immigrant experience, or is it, a spin-off of a Hollywood picture, basically, or is it something totally different? Like what?
I think
some sense.
I think it's something totally different than that. I honestly think the Inaritu experience, it's a museum showcase piece, right? And then any films or cinematic, something comes out of the studios it's an out of home, go sit in the theater experience. Even if that theater is put on a headset, it's more of an event-based thing. I don't think the mass adoption of this type of content is going to come from that. I think it's going to come from everyday stories, news, live broadcasts in 360, which are amazing. Like sports, I think that's where we're actually going to start seeing that habitual adoption.
I just want to speak to
Sure.
something that's
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of been covered, but just very basically. One of the problems, I think, is accessibility. We here in Hollywood are very, very privileged where we live. The average cost of income is, the average income is very high. But if you look at the average family or the average person in the U.S., they make $60K or less. So if you're asking them to buy an iPhone for $1K,
Right.
how much of their income is that? Are they really going to spend that kind of money just for a new toy, for a new gimmick, something like that? I think we have to get to a point where there's a happy medium between the two, and then of course people will be wanting to watch more content and experience those location-based experiences more often. And I think nonprofits have really, really touched on this and gotten it a lot faster than maybe corporations have, because they understand the medium a little bit more. They're seeing that this is more of a, it's not a, I'm going to tell you what to think. This is, I'm going to put you in a place where you might not have experienced. You might not normally have the income or accessibility to go to this place in Cuba, in Africa, wherever, and it's becoming more, a deeper story.
Yeah, so maybe
in that
other
sense.
verticals like travel, or even to think about the enterprise might
Travel,
be worthwhile, right?
medical even,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, you're sitting, like, I always go back to this, but it's an interesting company. He's with hundreds of thousands of 360 video titles you aggregate, right? So you've got a pretty broad view on what works and what doesn't, or?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty massive library of content, and we have, brands and publishers coming to us asking for that content for licensing or for assignment work from our creators. And I mean, it kind of runs the gamut right now. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of travel content, a lot of I want to be here or there, and can you put me there? But also, we're seeing a lot more now over the last few months since we had this panel a few months ago. We're seeing a lot more of the everyday sort of thing. Like I was telling Richard's actually in our network, and we had a brief yesterday from an agency who wants a nondescript U.S. city and a bunch of people in traffic, walking traffic, just so that they can kind of work with a brand to put the brand's messaging into that. And it's just that they want the feeling of busyness and energy, right? So
some of this stuff still feels like the gaming universe is we're somewhat closer to that. I mean, when I hear this, I mean, you've got some experience with that, right, Matthew, with Sharknado and some of the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, we actually, again, we wanted to be a cinematic content storytelling company, and we are pulling back a little bit on the live action, and so we're going down the video gaming, or the VR video gaming rabbit hole, so to speak. And it's a learning experience because the metrics aren't there. I was just telling some of the people before, we're trying to do some in-game advertising, product placement, and I thought we'd take advantage of that VR for PR, that massive rush that all the brands are rushing to VR. And they want to do their own branded projects, and they just don't see the metrics yet. We're kind of talking to the brand managers now, and they're kind of the grim reaper. They're saying, like, no, you don't have the numbers yet. So that's what I'm faced with. So we're still, we're learning a lot. We might be one of the first gaming companies to do in-game advertising or product placement. I mean, we would actually take the brand and put it within the game, and then we would do maybe 2 versions, a free version. Level 1 might be with advertising, and I'm talking about in-game, or billboards within. The actual brand might become part of the gameplay even. And then we would then upsell different levels and then go into a non-advertising. I mean, we can talk about that, but I think if you pay money, I don't think you want that pre-roll, post-roll interruption. So that's what
I think when you look at the content there, you can kind of break it down to a couple of areas, and there is spectacular content right now. It's coming from almost like the art house content. If you look at like what Oculus Studio's done, or you look at what Google Spotlight Studio, the Emmy winners like Felix and Paul. They've some of the stuff they've done with the Obama White House, or they've done with Cirque du Soleil. There's just some. And have you guys all seen like Dear Angelica and The People's House? And there's just some amazing content that was tons of money spent, amazing theater talent and artistic talent is focused on that. But clearly that's not seeing a positive ROI on the business side, but it's really helping to move the industry forward. There's that. Then there's like the gaming, so you have raw data, and you have Job Simulator from Alchemy. They already got picked up by Google. Raw data is by Servio, so they've hit 7 digits in their revenue. I think they're one of the few companies that have actually announced that. So you have these cool experiences on the gaming side, and then you have the VR for PR that you're talking about, that are really these content pieces. They might be sort of an added thing that was brought on for a movie, or somebody was like, oh, let's do it for a tequila brand, and so you have all of that is it's its content and its marketing. And you know, I think so. There's like these interesting sectors, but you know, it is still really, really, really early in all of it. So. I think, you know, there's still a lot, there's going to be some amazing content coming forth, but, you know, I don't think we've seen the brand defining hit. If anything, maybe it's not a brand defining hit, but, you know, Pokemon is the closest where you really have massive adoption. It's sort of like light AR. It's been heavily talked about it. I'm sure millions of these panels, we probably don't need to go into it, but I think we need to be thinking about it like, you know, this is still, you know, 2000 for mobile, or this is, you know, like remember Gordon Gekko with his huge mobile phone, and then you know, look where we are. You know, people, you can't sleep without your phone in your bed, right? So it's like there's a gap there. If you think about where Netscape was, you know, way back when, you'd be like, oh, I guess that's kind of cool, and then you go send your fax, right? So think about like where we were then and where we are. You know, the high-end headsets that we have in the market are only a year and a half old, so it's still a toddler business. So I think there's been amazing, amazing work, but there's still a lot of amazing, amazing work, and I agree 100% with Greg that we will see that one device where you can do AR, MR, XR, VR, but along the way, each thing that we're seeing is something that's, you know, helping the industry move forward.
I wanted to vouch for also, you know, the tool sets keep evolving, and even like Janus VR. And A-frame, things that are, you know, in the realm of you know, web VR and building assets so easily. You know, if you know a little bit of code, you can kind of do some basic web VR web building within Janus, and you can be creating, you know, full 6 degree of freedom, you know, room scale experiences that are just accessible. You know, it doesn't cost, you know, a huge budget to make. So as the tool sets evolve and people have more access, you know, just like you have, you know, a whole realm of YouTubers that are now millionaires because they have, you know, cheap tool sets. Everyone has a camera in their hand. And as the tool sets evolved and people know how to use them, I think that'll help with adoption as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to just add, going back to, you know, there isn't one, clearly there's not one piece, it's not inagitu, there isn't one piece of content yet that has moved the needle, and that clearly that's just because of not enough people have access to it, and that's just the missing component. But one of the things that I have actually seen has been a real missing link over the last, you know, again, 4 years in VR, is that although there really is some incredible content out there, we're you know, one of the few up here on this panel of, you know, the very short list of people that actually get to see it in the way that it was created to be experienced. But there just has been like a lack of real strategy from these, you know, from the indies to the big companies of how to actually get it out there. That's really been, you know, a missing component. But now, like I certainly, in terms of all the projects that I'm working on, there's a real strategy, and clearly I'm actually seeing that. So in terms of an evolution of a business, people are starting to put their business cap on in a way that, you know, you look at other models in terms of infiltration. So with that kind of effort, you know, I do think that it's going to start moving the needle a bit because we just need more people to see it. That's what the missing link.
And one thing about that, like I talk a lot about 360 video on mobile and social and having access. Like that's a big thing, and especially to build a business on. But having said that, there's still, I mean, VR in a headset, a fully immersive experience, is an extremely powerful experience. Absolutely. And especially for brands and advertisers, if we're in the attention economy, what better way to get somebody's attention than to put headphones on them and take over their eyeballs? Like, those are the two most powerful senses that you have complete control over now. And you can put whatever you want into that experience. I mean, for brands and advertisers, that's hugely effective for them. Yes, maybe the scale is smaller, but those people that are experiencing it are getting the best experience you could possibly provide.
When I talk to brands about it, I talk about it similarly to where you would think about experiential marketing, right? Exactly. So when you're thinking of, if you're, you know, running your media budget, you're not thinking about, okay, I can either take this money and spend it on Facebook, or I could do a concert that's going to have, you know, 100 to 1,000 people. And so I think, you know, talk to them about thinking about it like that. So the same way, if you choose to do your concert for 100 or 1,000 people, you would then want to make sure you have an added PR bump, and you have that all those people can become, they're your captive audience and your brand ambassadors, right, like you're saying. And so you want to make sure you have your socials attached and PR attached so that you get that lift the same way you would for another type of experiential budget.
Are you all sort of, just to landscape a little bit, I mean, is most of what you're kind of referring to kind of VR? I mean, are you talking just, there's lots of 360 video on the web, right? You just go into a web browser or augmented reality. There's this platform called mixed reality. Any of this stuff kind of figuring into what you're speaking about, or are you mostly talking about VR as being the base for this?
Well, we've been talking a lot about AR as the entry point for VR. And the idea being, like I said, if you have one device where, let's say BMW wants to run an ad and they send out, a flyer or whatever where you can use a QR code, and all of a sudden this BMW pops up and drives around this table, and you can see it with your phone, you can look all the way around it, but you get to choose your level of immersion. If you click on that car, now you're in the car and you're in, a VR experience where you can drive that car. Like, it's kind of the sliding scale of how immersed do I want to be? Do I want to see it over here and kind of look around at it, or do I really want to be in it? And you get to choose as the user how immersed in that content you want to be.
So I wanted to add something.
Sure.
Because we're going to all these different topics, and I want to talk about all of them. But and what gets me about being in this whole conference is that we're all on the cutting edge. We're so into it, and we're doing great work, and we want to push the limits and everything. But I'm on the street level. I've got clients calling me. So a couple weeks ago, I was in the Midwest, and I gave a training to a big international advertising agency that explained to them what it's all about, how a VR shoot works, but also how to talk to your clients about it. And the reps really got it. And at the end, she said, well, I'm going to talk to my client, and I'm just going to tell them that if they don't do some VR now, that they're going to look like they're behind, and they're not like a progressive company that knows what they're doing. So besides all this other stuff, they're going to try to say you should be doing some VR now, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And then one of the questions I wanted to ask people to talk about, if I may, is, and I've asked this in a few of the workshops, because everybody's talking about these great things they're doing, but I get clients calling me and they say, I want to do a VR. How much is it? I'm like, I don't, my jaw dropped. But how do you tell somebody that without insulting them? So eventually I got to my answer is, what's your budget? And then they go, well, we don't have a budget. We just thought this would be cool and we don't know anything about it. So you have to walk them through it, and now I give them a big range. It could be $100 to $100,000. So we're doing helicopters, we're doing cranes. What are we doing here? So that's really how do you charge? How do you charge for stuff? And people weren't giving me any figures this week. They don't want to tell you how much what they're charging. But for AR, which I was really interested in, it could be in the six figures. You probably can't get into it for less than 10 or 20,000, I guess. And I'm not doing AR. I want to learn how to do it, but that's stuff I'd like to know about.
Let me shift it a little bit. We'll get to advertising and business in a second, but just talk about the user experience for a second. You made an interesting comment about almost being captive, but give me your view on if there's a common quality to this, if it's immersion, what it is to any of these platforms that makes it so special and distinct that's going to capture people from the user experience perspective.
I really don't think it's about the. Certainly not about the headset. It's not even about the device. It really comes back to there is a piece of content that was delivered on a device that touches people, because these immersive mediums, they're emotional. They regardless if it's a brand, it's a piece of IP, something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because of the power of it. Going back to what Greg was saying, it just touches people emotionally, and sometimes people can't even articulate it. They're just touched. So, I think that if you really go down that road, certainly every project that I and we are creating, we're always looking at what is the emotionality of this. We start there, absolutely start there, and then try to take advantage of what is powerful, whether it's VR, AR, or MR. And going back to also what Greg said, I and we're also looking at AR as the entry point into everything else. It's going to be the most accessible. Clearly, it's going to be the least expensive from the consumer perspective. And in terms of going back to his question, it can be in many ways less dollars than VR in terms of an entry point to actually create it.
speaking further to VR, it's about also transporting that person to somewhere that, again, they might not be able to access, whether it's just physically or, and when I say physically, I mean location on the earth, or actually literally physically, because you're looking at the chemical structure of something, you know, something like that, like in the medical field. And something that actually Michaella brought up at an earlier panel, I believe last week, is that it's so powerful an experience that children actually have trouble differentiating between a VR experience and actual memories, which is scary and awesome at the same time. You know, and that can translate to adults, though it may be a little bit less, because we have, you know, we have that developed brain power a little bit differently. But just the fact that you can't remember, was that a dream? Was that, you know, how did I? It's really accessing your memories in a different way in your brain, and so that's just so there's a very deep power to that. And so that, I think that's a big thing for the users, you know, consumers.
I was going to add, personally, and everyone I've talked to, you lose track of time, which is, I think, to an advertiser would be very attractive. But that goes on with Greg was talking about. I mean, but that's the one thing that I've noticed. I just lose track of time, which is really bizarre. I mean, it's overpowering. I mean, all the superlative, you know, all the adjectives, whatever. But I do notice when I talk to people, they do lose track of time, which is kind of a good thing. They don't complain about it, but they just have no idea how long they were. Yeah, they were lost in it.
And to kind of talk about, you know, you mentioned the user experience, and I think the killer of user experience and a good user experience is friction. Friction of, you know, having to learn how to use a headset, even put it on. Like, there's friction there. There's friction in downloading an app. Like, when it becomes, you know, Facebook is doing a great job of just seamlessly incorporating 360 video into your feed. Like, that's the entry point that most people are going to have, and there's no friction there. You have your mobile, you're scrolling through, you pause on a video, and you slightly move your hand, and you're like, whoa, okay, now I'm in a whole new world. Like, and the more that becomes kind of the way that people experience it and start seeing it, and like Richard said earlier, you know, I stop on a fixed frame video and I try to move it around, and like, I can't, this is when they shot without 360, and it's frustrating. And I think when the more people that get to that point where it becomes frustrating, now you're going to start seeing adoption, and that's the magic window experience right now. But once people want to engage with that more, then they want to stick their head through that window, which is full immersion in VR. And by that time, hopefully the devices have, the form factor of the devices have kind of come to a point where it's super simple and easy to move into that space.
And, you know, for I've had a client, they want to do like a trade show thing or something, and they wanted to say, well, we want to use the Oculus or the Vive or something, and then I don't really use that myself, and so I bought one and I looked at my videos and they looked terrible, and then I started talking to people on the blog and they're like, yeah, no, the resolution's not there, but it's phenomenal for stuff that you do, which is the digital animated stuff looks amazing. But, you know, the headsets just aren't there for live. I said, you know, we need to do something different. So, anyway, I thought I'd throw that out.
I mean, Joanna, you touched on Facebook and social. I'm kind of interested in just touching on the idea of, you know, there's a lot of big titans and incumbents circling around this space, whether, you know, it's Oculus, Microsoft's got to play with HoloLens, Samsung, Florida, we got this mysterious thing called Magic Leap that is all locked up that we read about, and all of us are under NDA, can't talk about, but I mean, seriously, who in these sort of big titans are either ahead or is going to kind of influence the development of this as a business, as a medium?
I think they're all going to influence it. I think there's no big company that isn't heavily invested, and there's pretty much no, so, you know, from Tim Cook to Zuckerberg, they're all saying, like, I think Tim Cook came out this week and said there will be no business that's not going to be impacted by augmented reality. So, you know, with the way, we talked about this a little bit, but I think just to lay out clearly, that, you know, right now we're in the mobile era, and we will be moving into the immersive computing era. So, you know, we went from mainframe to desktop to mobile, and so there will be a point that we don't have these things with us anymore. Whether that's 5, 10, 15 years, I think that remains to be seen exactly, but this is where all of the next wave of computing, and there's pretty much no major technologist, futurist that doesn't think that. I don't even think there's a debate about it, like the sort of AI, Elon Musk, Ray Kurzweil debate. I think this is where most of the big leaders think that this is going.
You hear people say that, like, oh, is this like 3D TV? And it's like, no, it's so different. Like, this is a computing platform eventually. Like, yes, it's a content thing right now, but it's a computing platform that's coming, and we're playing with the content at the moment.
And you're right, and it's
we're building the technology.
Yeah, on the subject of Elon, like I think he did this great TED Talk that said people think, you know, with Moore's Law and the technology just advances. So that's somewhat true, but it's true because people spend all their talent and their brain power and their engineering skills and their billions of dollars to keep advancing it, and that's what's happening in Silicon Valley right now, and, you know, in Florida and other places around the world, that there's so many amazing people working on this, so every day things keep moving forward.
But it doesn't sound like anyone's saying like the last time we did this, someone had a very strong view on Sony being maybe out in the lead, and I don't know if you see someone as a leader right now, or you're just playing the field for all these different platforms.
I think you're going to see Apple make a huge play. I mean, they're going straight for AR, and I think, you know, Samsung is doing a lot in the space. Facebook and Oculus are doing it. They're spending so much money on it right now, and they have to protect their investment. So I think they're kind of the ones that are leading the way. Honestly, I think Sony, and it was funny, it was said in this panel, like when we talked about Sony, like the device is great, but Sony never supports their devices with content. And it is so true.
Sony has the ecosystem. They have every piece that they would need if they would actually like put them all together and work as a unified unit. Then they could be the leader. I think maybe right now their device is the best and it's the most cost accessible, and they have all that IP.
Yeah.
But you know, Sony has its own other issues.
And there's a surprising sort of dark horse, I think, here that no one talks about, but they're behind the scenes developing a ton of stuff, is Disney. I think Disney's going to come out with something that just kind of is like, well,
as a content provider.
And they have
content and
well, that was my next.
device.
The next thing is what I mean, like, you know, not to whatever. I mean, ask an inflammatory question, but you know, we're sitting in Hollywood. I mean, I don't know, the studio's going to be leaders or laggards? Are they helping this business, whether it's Disney or Fox or anyone?
They're all investing. They're all investing in lots of startups. They're all you know, Disney in the Void, where they had John from their accelerator.
Yep.
You have in Dreamscape, I think MGM, Warner, and Fox are all invested in that. I mean, pretty much, you know, every big studio has like a head of virtual reality job, most of which are trying to find people. But they're all investing. They're all experimenting. I wouldn't say they're going to be the leader.
They're never the leader.
They're never the leader.
They're always first to be second.
Yeah.
They avoid risk at all costs. So sure, they'll get into the game when there really is exactly business model.
A content business. Right.
Exactly, and I mean they're in the business to tell stories, right? That is the business. So when there is a bona fide business where they're not going to lose money, that's when they'll really jump in. But clearly, and they're all in the game in some way. You know, some of them have had you know, VR or immersive kinds of efforts in departments and even companies for the last 5 years. I mean, they're in it. Everyone is in it. They just don't know what to do, and they clearly just don't want to put a lot of money behind the experiments that they're literally.
Well, you know that AMC and IMAX have combined now. They're going to be putting headset stations in the theater lobbies and around in the shopping centers.
Exhibitors.
No, Dreamscape Immersive.
Yeah, Dreamscape.
IMAX has their own separate effort. Okay, IMAX VR. Screen shape
Just to get
immersive.
back to the studios,
It's a step.
if you're sitting on, you know, 100 years of motion picture television content, someone's got to be looking at this platform shift that was just mentioned, going from, you know, static content to span, and you're going to have to retool your life. There's going to be some investment, planning, and strategy there. They got to be thinking about it, whether they're making titles right now or not in a big way, right?
Well, I think what you're gonna see them do in a lot of ways, and especially in the early days, is repurpose content inside of a 360 environment, even if it's flat, right? Like you'll be able to go into the world of Cinderella and watch the Cinderella movie. You know,
Yeah.
like you can do all that inside the immersed environment, but they're not going to necessarily create immersive content specific to the medium until, again, there's scale and business model.
Well, I think it's Hulu and Netflix to have you can go in and watch 2D content in 3D.
Yeah, I mean, maybe at some point, I mean, Magic Leap you'll just project it here. I mean, I don't know if there'll be a mixed reality platform for this stuff. I mean, they're doing a consumer play from what I understand in addition to a B2B kind of enterprise play.
Yeah.
You know what people are looking at now, and they're starting to bring out the cameras, is 180, and they think that's going to be a big thing. So, I mean, even, I forget the company that does the basketball games and everything.
Next
They're only,
VR.
yeah, they're only shooting 180. They're not doing the
Yeah.
360.
Yeah, I don't get, because look, one of the biggest things about immersive experiences is never break immersion. Like, as soon as you look behind you, even if it's for a second, I get it, people look this way because that's where the action is, but as soon as you look that way and there's nothing there, you've lost the immersion.
Okay. I mean, you see, go ahead.
Thank you.
We're giving you
So
That
everything
cartoon
jump in.
video that they first had when they first came out with the headset from Samsung, when you've seen, everybody's seen that. There was a guy smoking a joint in the first row, and that was like great, you know. You always want to turn around and watch that guy. So.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here.
Go ahead, jump. I have some topics now as well.
This is what I spend my weekends thinking about. You have no idea. Every movie, every TV show I watch, I'm like, oh, this would be a perfect thing for VR or an immersive experience. But specifically for the studios, we were actually part of the Mr. Robot piece. So this was highly successful. It was a VR piece. It's not a commercial. It could be considered marketing, but it was a companion piece to a season. So it actually connects 2 seasons, and you get a backstory that you would not get from the TV show when you watch this. They released it at Comic-Con, and it was supposed to only be up for a day. They wound up having it the entire time of Comic-Con, and people waited over 3 hours in line to watch this. That is every marketing and advertiser's dream come true.
So it's telling you something you don't see in the series.
Exactly. It
Incremental,
tells you a complete backstory. It connects thoughts and ideas between seasons. So when you watch it, you go, oh, okay, so where they're going to talk about this thing or this part of the relationship in the next season. So that's where I think the content can really, really benefit, is you're providing a different aspect to the story. It's not TV, it's not a film. I mean, it's considered a 360 film, but it's not radio, it's a different media. And people just need to understand that that's what it is and learn how to kind of mold it to that situation.
I wanted to jump in there because this is absolutely everything that I and we're doing at my company, is absolutely the integration of story across different medias and platforms, because that's the opportunity. I personally think just where we are at in media is integration of story. We know that the audience is absolutely everywhere and by their choosing. So creating IP, I think every creator, whether you're on the business side of it or you're actually the creator, that you really need to be thinking of, really acknowledging and thinking about, okay, so if my audience is everywhere, how do I have my story reach them, compel them, and compel them not only because they so love the IP, but also then how they're going to spend dollars on it. So the integration of story, keeping a story alive, keeping characters alive, keeping these subplots that you could never experience any other way in the traditional mediums, absolutely these immersive platforms, it's the huge opportunity to do that, especially if it's accessible everywhere. Going back to mobile, it really is everywhere.
And speaking of everywhere, we were talking about strategies earlier. New York Times had a great strategy. pulling it off had a little bit of a hitch, but they basically released an entire VR division.
Yeah.
And when they did so, they gave local cardboards to thousands of their, was it a million?
Yeah.
Because they did it in sections, so.
They also have a great VR, they have a
Basically
great
a million
performer
subscribers.
series, they've done, have been wonderful.
Exactly, we were
Yeah.
part of that, thank you.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Alright, so look, we have like 10 or 15 minutes. You guys have to ask some questions, you're mandated, okay? So jump in, let's go.
I'm gonna give you guys all a big softball. First and foremost, don't hold your breath on Magic Leap.
Is that a question or?
Yeah, the question is what is your favorite immersive experience so far and why? Just a quick one or two lines about why. Start and just go right to left.
Well, you know, I did like the Paul McCartney. I'm thinking the Michelle Obama interview showed what you could do using graphics and inserts, and I thought that was an amazing 360 video. I don't know, immersive. You know, I thought the flight over Ireland was pretty good. I mean, but you know, I haven't seen it. The one I want to see is Inarritu did the thing at the Cannes Film Festival that was so successful.
It's here in LA now, so.
It
It's
is.
sold out for like 4 months.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
None of us can get in. Okay.
Okay.
A few years ago, I got to test out the, I guess it was raw data. I signed a 26-page NDA. I'm assuming, I mean, I can talk about it now, but it was huge. But that blew, to watch my body, to look down and watch my body grow limbs was just amazing. And that was just I think that was like pre-beta, and it just blew me away. And I think that was one of my first experiences. And then everything else, I mean, we'll probably duplicate, but that was what kind of caught me.
Evette?
There are so many. But clearly everything that's been mentioned here. I will actually speak to the Inarritu. I saw it at Cannes. Haven't seen it here yet, but saw it at Cannes, and obviously that was even a bit of a different experience than actually what they have here. What I loved about that was that it was really combining a physical experience with a virtual experience, and I think that this is an incredible opportunity for where we can evolve the space and where the space is evolving. But then I was also blown away in a very different way by Dear Angelica, and not necessarily just because of the narrative, but it was literally a piece of VR that was entirely created in VR. So, and when you're in that experience, I mean, talk about getting lost in something. So I was really moved by that in a lot of different ways, inspired by it.
Evette stole my answer. For CG generated, yeah, Dear Angelica, just simply because they created it with the media in mind. And so I have 2 film ones that were some of my favorite. Galen's Reef, which is a project that we worked on actually, that takes you to West Papua New Guinea and it's a very personal story between a father and a son. And it also has a good message and beautiful photography and everything. So that one was just really great because it takes you to another place and explains a culture and an issue, and it's very well thought out. Yeah,
Cool.
you brought up great performers, and that
Yeah.
one was actually really, really well done because again, they planned it properly and it was created for the media, but it has that story quality that has been missing sometimes. When people just want to do a cool skate video or something,
Right.
it's not really what you're going for.
Cool.
So I would say the nomadic experience and then also the void experience, they're both location based, and because you have the experience of being in a digital environment, you have the social experience with it, and then also when you touch things around you, they're actually there, and so you have it's a really amazing and their story. Void just announced Star Wars, and you can already buy tickets for it, and if you guys haven't been. The Nomadic actually has something at Technicolor now, they just said. So definitely recommend those.
Now, but the Void, do you mean the one in Salt Lake City or the one that Madame Tussauds Ghostbusters in New York?
there's 4 of them. There's those 2, plus there's Dubai, and there's Toronto, and then they're going to launch in.
But the one that you're referring to
Yeah.
is, which one is
It's
which?
all of them.
All of them, okay.
It's the same, yeah, it's the same. They have a demo here in Glendale too. But
You're
they're
working
gonna have
together.
stores. And then I also do agree with Cafe, with Darren Jones, that you guys both said.
Oh, Michaela.
I'm going to mention a couple. One is called The Wave, and it's a basically virtual rave. So it's an incredible experience. In fact, you know, it's social, so you're partying with people all over the world, and it's a really interesting way in which the virtual world has been gamified. So I do have to vouch for that in terms of it as an experience. And the second one would be more on a narrative side is Wonder Buffalo. And I thought it was an incredibly moving piece because it breaks the bounds of, kind of it's about an overweight Thai girl who has overweight body issues, and her mother is making fun about her eating, and it's just interesting to see how she transgresses with her imagination within the story world. So I thought that was powerful, utilizing that. So.
For me, I love the Google Spotlight story, Pearl. I just thought that it was such a beautiful story, and it was told from inside of a car and through all these years of a father and daughter. Maybe it's because I have a daughter, and that kind of struck a chord, but I just thought it was a beautifully told story. Notes on Blindness was one of those that just blew my mind. And I was like, oh, that's why you do VR right there. And then still one of my favorites is Chris Milgabo Aurora did Waves of Grace. I think they really figured out kind of camera positioning and how to tell an immersive story.
Cool.
Gabo and Ari agree at that.
Yeah.
I'm a music head, so I mean I think it's 360 video, but the experience inside the Beatles studio at Abbey Road that Google did was great for me. Actually, to Joanna's point about kind of complimenting it, I found a way in this summer actually to take my kids into the studio, and it was probably arguably more powerful than the 360 video experience, but it was a really cool connection basically to experience it. So anyway.
Yes, but to that point, last night when they were showing the space station, so shockingly, I've never been to the space station, but I've been there many times in VR. And so when they were showing the astronaut, which I don't know how many of you guys went to the dinner, but the astronaut was showing all these scenes from the space station, and that was the first time I've seen somebody showing that type of film since I've been in space in VR, and I had a different experience of watching the video of it because I felt like I'd been there. Yeah, it was like a memory that I'd been there. Although, don't tell anyone I haven't been to space.
There's a bus ride to Mars, by the way, that kids run, if you've seen. That was quite a big hit from New York a couple of years ago. The kids started a school bus, and that's about a year old. Okay, anyone else, please?
I have a question, just going back to the 360 versus 180 question. I was part of a debate, I guess, where they were talking about the move to 180 is really about not losing the viewer. So when someone is plumped into a 360 space, they don't know where to look. It may not be clear to them where the story might unfold. So what do you think about spatial audio in that aspect? Is that a way of directing the user? Like, how do you see the best way to really keep that user's attention, especially for a first-time user if they don't know where to look? Because I could see someone losing interest if they're not following the storyline. Yeah.
So 2 things on that. One, I think it's cheating if you do 180 just to keep someone's attention. You're not understanding the medium very well. You need to, like, theater directors are going to be really good at this with blocking and action moving to other action.
Hire theater people.
Yes, spatial audio will be big, but spatial audio is only good when someone's in a headset, right? If they're on their mobile, like, spatial audio doesn't really do a whole lot of good.
Actually, there are headsets out for that.
3D spatial audio is like the poor cousin that never gets mentioned that needs to be part of all of these productions. No, it is.
It is. I totally agree.
And it comes from 100 years old. It's built off binaural, invented in France, and it's an incredibly key part of the experience. And there's a lot. There's one called Mach 1 that's doing a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, and there's one out of Princeton that one of the most brilliant professors has done that spatializes it. You can hear it on the cheapest jam boxes for $60 on speakers. You can use it in the car, so the kids get something different than the adults do up front. And it's got a lot of applications well outside just like the entertainment content ecosystem. That's my road into VR, because my background's in music has been through 3D audio. And no one talks about it, and there's even less of a business model definition. No one's thinking it. Imagine if you're doing Alien 3D for Fox, which has got 3D. How do you price that? Like, what do you charge for $1 billion budget? So I think I don't know what the 180 3D.
It's like, I mean, it's like anything. There are 4 things that direct attention: light, color, sound, and blocking. Like, that directs attention. You have to use all 4 of those. You can't
And now
just.
feel, haptics.
Yeah.
Well, haptics.
Depending
That's
on
a
what
new
you're
thing,
in.
right? Yeah, right.
Once you go downstairs and experience, those guys have a new audio device for ambisonic sound that is really amazing. I'm definitely going to get one. And they were telling me, even if you just use the left and right, the sound is so much better with their system. So,
But even there's the solutions that are well above ambisonic capability now, that pan the audio, and ambisonic just kind of, it's like an enhanced version of surround sound.
well, I put the headset on and they got musicians around and they're there to turn your head. They're going to stay where they are, which I thought was
I
pretty
wanted to
interesting.
add spatial audio, the difference between it in a 360 environment versus a actual 3-dimensional environment. When you're dealing with 360, you're still dealing within the sphere of a circle around someone's head. But if you were to deal with spatial audio within a 3-dimensional environment, then it depends on where the user is within the world. So then spatial is a different form of audio in that regard. So differentiating which type of VR you're utilizing.
Just wanted to jump in and say, number one, that as the audience member, you're never looking in the wrong direction, because it's your freedom of choice. As creators, we have to give that up. This is like, the traditional 2D mediums, they're either writers or directors mediums, whether it's, features or TV. But in terms of immersive, you're in the driver's seat. So you're never looking in the wrong direction. It's up to the creator to guide you. That's our job. So yes, and there's a host of tools. I literally, for the last several years, I've been developing a list. I call them story triggers, and these are tips and techniques to keep the attention of the audience.
Yeah.
So you're never looking in the wrong direction.
Recently, I heard someone liken immersive experience creation to a theme park designer, because when you go to Disney World, you're in an immersive experience. You are immersed. You can walk anywhere you want to walk. You can go down any path, and they lead you right where they want you to go. And you're looking at exactly what you want, but there are Easter eggs hidden. There's stuff everywhere that builds that immersion. We need to do that inside of the content that we build.
Cool. I think we have just 2 more minutes if anyone has a last question.
To pile on to his question earlier about your favorite VR experiences, has anybody seen any AR experiences that have the same or even close to the immersion aspect of what you can do in VR? Has anybody seen anything in that segment that might
I'll
sort of
start.
help?
I've done a couple things in the HoloLens that have been really immersive. The Easter egg hunt, although it was a limited showing at VR LA this year, that was an incredible experience, because they had built out a whole set, a whole kind of, pixelated, 8-bit digital world, and you were going around with the HoloLens and looking and hunting for Easter eggs. So I thought that was an incredible experience. If they ever have it pop up again, definitely keep an eye out. And also another experience that's built into the HoloLens, it was a robot one. Forgive me on the name of it, but I thought it was an incredible thing. I mean, I think we were a whole bunch of friends, someone was doing VR in the corner, but it was like a weird kind of compilation, because I was running around, battling, robots in this world while people are doing VR, so it was a weird, but that one, yes.
I
Box,
saw
that's the next
two,
one.
I think one at VRLA and one at, I think, Vision 17. So there was, one was in addition to the Easter egg hunt, one where you had, I think it was Reggie Watts doing comedy, and you went from 5 different places in the room, and each place you saw him do a different shtick, yeah. So they kind of did use the environment a little bit. And then the other one that I thought of, I think it was Vision 17. It was a 2-part series where you watched dancers in VR, and then you went into the next room and you watched a dance series in AR. So it was also a combination. So it was kind of interesting.
I was actually gonna get to that and say, then on top of that, has anybody seen any kind of combination of the two, you know, synthesized together somehow or transitioned somehow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. I haven't seen it done effectively, and I think AR, I mean, the stuff that I've seen in AR, it's super cool, but it's still spectacle. It's still, check this out, this is cool. I haven't seen anyone be able to tell a story in there, and like.
There was one story, I'd have to look it up. There, if you check up 5 Rs this year, they had a few augmented reality stories on there. And there was actually one, it was like there was ghosts, it had ghosts in the name.
It had ghosts.
But it was interesting because they had this whole play space in like the ground, you know, as you went down you would, you know, get more. And I thought it was a very interesting overlay with narrative within an augmented reality, you know.
Interesting.
So yeah, definitely check out the 5 Rs.
I mean, I think it's coming. I think it will be super cool when it gets here, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, then there's, you know, all the AR kit stuff, like I did purple hair, I think that's a story. You know, there's the guys, the kabak, they're doing the menus, you know, so instead of like getting overwhelmed by the cheesecake you know, factory menu, you get to see a little picture of what every piece of food looks like. So, you know, there's like there's the AR, there's the HoloLens or the Meta, or you know, like all of those type headsets for AR, but then there's just, you know, what you can do with your device.
I mean, obviously the entry
upgrade to
point-
iOS 11.
Right, obviously the entry point for a lot of people through a mobile device and, you know, avoiding the cost, you know, especially 18 to 29-year-olds, avoiding the cost of like, you know, headsets and the restrictiveness of it. And so like I'm trying to figure out in my head, like how to create some a more experiential device to get you into that space.
It's so funny because millennials hate single-use devices, like a watch. Like, what's the point? It's you only have one use. You know? But a VR headset is the same thing, and it's more expensive.
Well, when they were infants, there were cell phones.
Right.
So and they were, and I shouldn't even say cell phones. They were computers.
Right.
In their hands.
Computers in your pocket.
So you know, really, you know.
Going back to just, I'm sorry, AR experiences are, I mean, what I've really seen more, especially in terms of narratives, is just really demos. You know, right now, we're really, I mean, look, we're not even there with VR yet. We're clearly nowhere near yet with AR, but I think AR is actually going to happen much faster, just because it's going to be easier for the whole access. But some of the demos, it's just going to be in front and behind, so the creator and then the end user, absolutely, it's just gonna be easier and cheaper. But, so I've seen some pretty interesting demos experimenting with, you know, narratives. Nothing that's out yet, you know, clearly, but one thing that I can just share is with definitely top talent, you know, top talent, it's very easy actually even to shoot top talent green screen, you know, with that, but some of the things that I've been seeing and experimenting with is just creating like portals into a piece of IP through it, you know, through your AR device. So you would have the talent, you have elements of that world seeping through into your world, and then with a loose narrative. So something like that, you know, clearly can work easily.
And there's actually an AR company that's working on this natural transition between where we are now and AR in Santa Monica. And they're taking it from the Snapchat kind of point of view and basically creating an app for that's geared more toward artists, where you can essentially create your own, for lack of a better word, almost like a filter, an AR filter, but you create whatever you want it to be because you're an artist, and it would be in a Snapchat function. So basically, you know, we would take a picture together, and like, if I were the artist, I would have designed some cute little, like, unicorns to run above our heads or something, and then we would share that across Snapchat.
Well, like
Facebook,
Max did,
Facebook, Facebook in their office, in their new office in Menlo Park, they had an artist build an AR artwork on their wall. Like, when you look at the wall, it's blank. But when you look at it through AR, you see this beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah, Jeff did that I saw on the beach.
Yeah,
Jeff
Jeff.
But then somebody put graffiti on it, so it's like, so they added story to the story.
Guys, thank you very much. Awesome panel. Thank you. Thanks very much for coming. Appreciate it.